Okay, hi everyone. Happy Friday. Nice to meet you at this workshop. My name is Vadim, and I will be holding this workshop about the product management and how to support that your product moves in the wrong direction. It's not a secret that it's easy to build a product, but again, it's always a challenge to build a product. But it's a much greater challenge to build successful products. That's why it's very vital for you as a product manager or as a part of a product team to properly recognize signs that the product moves in the wrong direction and address these problems in advance. Before we start, let's just get acquainted a bit. Please drop a message into the chat whether you are from Andersen or not and what is your current position. So while you're doing it, just a couple of words about myself. I am an ex-B2B product manager. I launched 15 products from scratch and killed many of them as well. I have some startup experience. I have 2 years of startup experience, and I use healthy skepticism toward product management. That's why what is not proved is not actually truth. Yeah, just don't be shy. Please drop your comments. Let's see what's going on. Is there anybody here or not? Okay. Let's just wait for a couple of minutes for people to join us. I see that not everyone is on time. Okay, I see that we have 12 people. Okay, let's just quickly start and also other people can catch up with the stream. So if we talk about product issues that may occur with new product, they can fall into 4 categories. The first category is product management issues. The next one is sales issues. The third is customer research issues. And the last one is the product usage issues. Within the current workshop, I would like to touch each category. And so here is our agenda. So let's go through the first category. One of the most common problems within product management is the absence of product vision and absence of product strategy, as well different changes in priorities, one decision maker, random features in the product or feature factory, and backlog full of high priority tasks and absence of short-term roadmap. Let's just go one by one and see how this problem occur and how you can respond to them. The first problem is the absence of product vision. So when you have an idea and when you start a product, you need to start from a product vision. It's a must-have for every product team because without the product vision, it's quite difficult to develop a product without just implementing all the necessary features. The product vision for you is like some sort of navigator for your product, which allows you to better understand what features you should include and what features do not align with your product vision, as well as what problems it should address and what problems it should skip. If you do not have a product vision, that's a first sign that you should start from developing it, because if you do not have it, you and your team and other stakeholders, they will have a lot of freedom in developing the product, which is actually doesn't meet your initial vision of the product, and that's why, as in the result, you can get not what you really expected. That's why develop a product vision. It's a very simple. It has a very simple template which you can reuse, and then share with your teammates, with stakeholders, and try to let's say enrich it with collaborative thinking. The next problem which you may also observe is the absence of product strategy. The product strategy is some sort of a high-level plan on how you plan to achieve product goals, and without the product strategy, your product cannot properly work and evolve over time. When you do not have product strategy, you will be doing some random things, random actions, which may not deliver the results that you really expect and what let's say what other stakeholders expect. That's why for a product manager and product team working on a specific product, it's vital to develop a product strategy. It's not very easy because you will have to collect a lot of information about the market, about user needs, how you plan to reach each user segment, what problems you want to achieve. And that is why it's an iterative work which you should do with your product team. And again, don't be shy and involve all the different types of stakeholders within a company so they can provide you their feedback and different insights on the subject and the products that you are developing. And again, you should perform a lot of, let's say, preparation, such as market research, customer research, and all the other things, just to ensure that your product strategy reflects the actual state of the market. The next problem which you may observe, and usually which is quite obvious, is the constant switch of priorities. This problem may also relate to projects as well, but in the product it has a very negative impact. What does it mean? In many situations, you have different stakeholder groups. You may have customer success team, you may have sales team, business executives, marketing team, and all of them have their own piece of things that they want you to address. As a product manager, you need to find the proper balance when interests of each stakeholder group can be addressed on a timely manner. Unfortunately, there may be situations when the stream of these requests is too high, and for you it's quite difficult to properly align with all of them and prioritize. That is why what you can do, you can develop the prioritization framework and use it as a basis for scoring this or that request and evaluate the real need of it. If, for example, you've heard about ISO RISE frameworks, they can help you with that. The next problem, which you may also encounter, is one decision maker. That's a very common problem, which may appear in startups or in large enterprises, where you have one person with a lot of, let's say, decision power, and it can be a real problem to persuade this person not to exercise all the power, but just be more collaborative and let's say attentive to other opinions. Unfortunately, when you have one decision maker, that's a problem for you as a product manager, as you will spend a lot of time just trying to persuade, collect a lot of evidence, and let's say other proofs that this is a decision should be made in the way you want. Unfortunately, in many cases, your, let's say, evidence can be ignored. That's why you should be quite cautious and try to be, let's say, proactive in collecting evidence, and try to collect evidence in such form that this decision maker can make the right decisions. And ideally, you should try to build some sort of the product committee within the company, which can make collaborative decisions based on different data, different opinions, thoughts, and experience. As well, these decisions should be based on data collected and different sorts of evidence that you as a product manager or product team have collected as well. The next problem, which you may also observe, it's feature factory or random features in the product. Unfortunately, this problem may appear when, let's say, you have a situation when you have no ideas what to develop next in the product, you do not receive some feedback from customers, or when you try to grow the product, or when you try to reach a new market, and at this stage, you may decide to try some new features which may not even align with your product vision and your product strategy, but you just decide to try. So just be very careful with that, because in this case you can increase uh, the complexity of your product. You can create a lot of cross dependencies between the components, and again, new features that bring new business logic, and after a while, the scalability and architecture of your product will be greatly impacted by this, and that is why establish maybe some sort of criteria when you agree that this feature is post-implemented and when it's not. So prioritization framework can help you with this. And of course, don't be shy and be ready to deprecate some features over time, especially when you see due to the product analytics that this or that feature is not used at all. The next problem, which you may also already have, is a backlog with all highest priority tasks. That's some sort of a problem when you have multiple stakeholder groups and they just try to compete against each other. And in this case, they contribute the ideas, they think that they are the most important ideas. And in this case, you as a product manager, you should take control over that, because without this, your, let's say, development resources will be spread a lot of across multiple things, and you will not be able to finalize all of them. So you will have a lot of, let's say, unfinished features, and by the way, you will start accumulating a lot of technical debt, which will create additional problems for future product development. That's why I use different prioritization frameworks. There are a number of them. I think that you can create your custom one based on specific criteria that you consider important for product development. And of course, you can also implement some sort of quick limits for new features coming into the development pipeline. So that's why just avoid such situations when you have all highest priority tasks. And as well, just from regular backlog reviews, especially when you receive new feedback from users. That's why it will be good to share some user researches with different stakeholder groups, so they can understand that some of the tasks and priorities are not on actual for the product. And absence of short-term roadmap, that's a very specific feature which is usually peculiar to new products. Once you launch a new product, it may happen that within the next couple of months, you may not receive enough feedback, and you may not have enough data and evidence and user research that some new features should be added. So in this case, let's say you can focus on some simple MVP and let's say have some additional features in the backlog, which you can keep for this period of time, while you will be performing additional user research, trying to collect feedback from users. And of course, you can use this backlog for your development team to be engaged during this period of time, while you are still waiting for feedback, collecting it, and perform additional sort of custom development. The next bucket is sales issues, so let's proceed with them, and I will answer questions at the end of the presentation, so just there will be Q&A session. So regarding sales issues, usually there are several of them, such as no clear pricing strategy, very long sales cycle. Also, we can have poor conversion of trial users into customers, significant product adjustments before sale, and low CLTV and high CAC. Let's just go. So the first problem is no clear pricing strategy. For example, when you start work on a new product, you may have temptation to experiment on the pricing. And that's let's say common problem when you work with B2B products. In B2C, you should have some sort of subscription plans. From the very beginning, you have unit economics, but in B2B, you may try to experiment with pricing and what you can do, especially when you use a sales-led approach, and your sales team may try to check how enterprises or companies of the same size respond to the prices of different levels. So you can sell something at low price to one company and at high price to the same to another company, but these companies are, let's say, from the same segment. And this experimentation is fine for several months after the launch of the product, because you just try to find out the balance between the actual product value and the money that people are ready to pay for your product. But in long-term perspective, you need to develop some consistent product strategy, which will allow you to clearly communicate the pricing plans and the price of your product. And because without developing the clear pricing strategy, you may have a situation when you will create additional obstacles for users who are trying to develop your to try your product, to get started with it. And if you see, for example, on the website that contact our sales team to get the actual pricing, there is low probability that this visitor will reach out to your sales team unless the problem is very critical and there are no competitors on the market. But usually this situation happens quite rarely. That's why you will have a lot of competitors, either direct or indirect. So you should be quite careful with creating additional roadblockers, and just try to be transparent for every company, especially if you work in specific sector and representatives of these companies can interact together. The next problem is very long sales cycle. This problem relates more to B2B products and less than to B2C. When you have a very long sales cycle, it means that from the initial point of contact until the deal is closed, you need, let's say, 3, 6, or even 12 months. And in this case, especially when you launch a new product and, let's say, stakeholders expect quick results, you may have problems, because when you need to spend a lot of time in convincing the customers that you should buy it, it's worth doing, it's worth buying. There are a lot of different cool features that can simplify your life and the life of your company. This requires time. And what you can do, you can just try to educate your sales team, provide additional guidance on what benefits the product delivers, how you can apply it, what, let's say, restrictions it has. So just try to be transparent with the customers so they understand them as well. And try to analyze the current sales process. Maybe there are some, let's say, unnecessary calls. Maybe there is some misunderstanding between the sales team and your potential customers. And don't be shy, just try to visit these calls as well, because you can get some additional insights, such as rejections or objections from the prospect side or from the lead side, why they do not want to try a product. And this way you can prepare additional resources and materials how to cope with that and provide it to your sales team. And another problem of it, when you have when you work in a startup and you have very long sales cycle, it means that at some point of time you may get out of money and you will have to close as a founder, or you may have to close the company, and all the product teams, they will lose their jobs. That's why try to reduce the sales cycle as much as possible, try to automate it, and try to provide enough evidence and product value from the very beginning that the company starts using your product. The next problem is poor conversion of trial users into customers. So very frequently, when you launch the product, there can be problems. when trial users, they start using your product, but they do not want to pay for it. And you may see some very low conversion rates, less than 1%. And in this case, the easiest way for you to understand is to perform a comprehensive user research. You also can perform some lead qualification, because if you have the sales team or you have different acquisition channels, it may happen that you are working with not the right people, not with the right leads, not with the right potential customers who want to buy. And in some cases, when, for example, the sales team has specific KPIs, just record 100 leads, they may use different techniques just to attract people, but these people are not your buyer persona. That's why you should be quite careful. And as a product manager or part of product team, you can review whether you're working with the right leads, whether they are properly qualified, and of course, you should monitor different objections that appear at this pathway. And of course, if you have some product analytics, you can use it to understand the points where these drop-offs occur and see whether there are some issues, maybe there are some bugs, or maybe there are, let's say, some misunderstanding with the product. And that's why I try to explore different solutions and try to find the root cause of the problem, why this happens. Significant development efforts before a sale. Unfortunately, this problem also may happen if you develop a complex technological project. When your sales team starts promoting the product, start working with a lead, it may appear that they need a lot of additional features that may not really exist within your product and which you may not even have on your radar. That's why, as a product manager or as a part of product team, you should be able to properly estimate these requests and see whether they really align with your product vision and your product strategy. And of course, you should be quite careful, because if these adjustments, they require a lot of time, for example, several months of development, and just consider whether you really have this time to sacrifice on just one customer. And the main problem which may appear is that when you develop a product for one customer, you may lose a lot of other customers which will be waiting for your product during this time. And one must seem to consider that you should also work with a sales team so they can properly understand use cases when your product can be used. Because sometimes it's easier to reject some lead than to develop, than to invest a lot of development efforts into their requirements or requests. And of course, if you see that customers need something very comprehensive, try to automate these things, try maybe to integrate some artificial intelligence or machine learning. But of course, if you are at the early stages, just try to make your product as simple as possible, because it will be easier for you to scale it in the future and enrich it with new functions. The next problem is low CLTV, or customer lifetime value. This problem also relates to high customer acquisition costs. So what does it mean? When you use the subscription model, in most situations, you need to acquire customers through some advertising channels or paid channels. And in this case, you just spend money to acquire new customer. And in this situation, when, for example, your customer churn after a short period of time, for example, after a month or two, you do not earn enough money just to cover these expenses on acquisition. And this gap, it will be growing with the growth of your audience. And you, as a product manager, should be quite careful about that, because you will not be earning money, you will be just spending them. And in this case, what you can do, you at first should focus on the retention strategies. There are a lot of different techniques how to retain customers within the product. Again, if you see that Your customers, they do not see real value. Just try to understand why they do not see, what you can do to articulate this value to the customer. And of course, if you already have some customer base, just try to make cross and upsells. In this case, you will just try to cover these expenses, and you will get more time just to figure out the real reason why you have this gap. And the next one is high customer acquisition cost. Again, when you have some paid channels, and this problem may relate both to B2C and B2B products. In B2C world, it's more critical. In B2B, the cost of the customer acquisition cost can also be quite high and can reach several thousand dollars, for example. But in B2C, with the scaling and growing of your product, this problem can be quite significant, and it affects your unit economics, and that's why you should be quite careful with it. What you can do, first of all, you should review your customer acquisition channels, whether they are really target the right people, and if not, you can try to optimize them, try to new channels or something like that. Of course, you should also focus on high paid segments. So for example, you may see that from some channels you receive companies or people who are ready to pay more than from other channels. So you can focus on these channels. And of course, you should also consider some organic promotion of your product. So you can explore different organic channels and try to grow your user audience based on them. The next category is customer research issues. So they include such problems as absence of any feedback, absence of customer development, absence of experiments, opposite feedback from users and customers, and no understanding of product usage. So let's see. Absence of any feedback from users and customers can be a quite common problem for products, especially at the very launch of the product. So you've launched the product, you do not receive any response from the market, you don't receive any response from users and customers. You see that people are using your product, but you have no idea how. You do not understand what problems they have. And you, as a product manager or a part of a product team, you should try to do something about this. And the first option that you can choose is building feedback loops. So at every moment of the interaction with your product, you can try to collect feedback. You can use different techniques how to do it, but again, try to engage with your users, try to perform customer development, and try to get, let's say, quantitative information as well. Because quality feedback can be also a bit misleading, especially when you talk to early adopters and innovators, and they can provide you with some exotic use cases which may not really need it for all users of your product. And having collected some initial feedback, you can further analyze it and check how further you can go with the product and what else you can improve in it. Absence of custom development. Custom development is a methodology which product teams use to get insights from customers, to get information about their pain points and solutions that they try to address these pain points. If someone tells you that you don't need to communicate to end users, you don't need to communicate to customers, that's a bad sign that people build the product based on their assumptions and based on their intuition. In real life, when you build a product, you need to have regular interviews with the users. You need to check how they address their tasks, their jobs with the product, what problems they see, how you can help with these problems. Because during these customer interviews, you can get a lot of different insights regarding the UX issues, regarding bugs, regarding some miscommunications or messages, a lot of things that confuse or puzzle your users. That's why it's very critical for you to engage your teammates even to participate in these customer interviews and get more information from real users. And of course, having this information, you can further proceed and adjust your roadmap to address these pain points that you have figured out. Absence of experiments. This problem usually relates to B2C because in B2B, performing experiments can be quite a difficult task, and especially if we talk about A/B testing. But again, in B2B, there are different techniques which you can use to check and validate whether the idea is worth implementing or not. So if you, for example, if you do not use any experimentation or any validation of ideas, this can be a problem for you and for your product as well. Because let's say assumptions, intuition, experience, even if you are a subject matter expert, it doesn't matter that your product will be evolving as you predict. And frankly speaking, it will never happen so. That is why experiments, especially B testing, gives you a great level of confidence that the idea which you want to implement will drive the revenue or will affect or will impact the metrics that you target. And of course, you should start from something. That's why you can check different types of experiments that you can perform. The easiest one is some sort of fake button or even fake listing when you explain the feature which doesn't exist, and you try to collect and see how your user audience reacts to it. But of course, you should be quite cautious, as in B2B products, you may have you may get some negative feedback regarding it. But in B2C, let's see, you will not have these problems. Another problem which you may also see is the totally opposite feedback from users and customers. And here we may have, let's say, two cases. The first case is when we have opposite feedback from users and customers. In this case, end users, they greatly like your product, and customers, people who really pay for this product, they see some gaps, they see some problems, they do not see product value. And the other case is when we have opposite feedback from different user segments. It means that your product do not really address all the pain points and problems of one of user segments. That's why you just need to figure out which user segment delivers more value, delivers more revenue and profit, and work with this segment. After a while, once you accumulate enough, let's say, resources, you can continue with another segment. And you can do this one by one. And in this case, you will just grow your product steadily, but you will not have some unexpected drop-offs in revenue or something like that. And of course, you should also try to figure out what are the common problems between segments and address these problems for the whole user audience. So just be careful and listen attentively to those user segments that you are interviewing. The next problem within this category is no understanding of product usage. Usually, this problem may happen with the customer success team if you have it. So in this case, you may notice such signs that customer experience problems, but your customer success team cannot resolve them. They do not have enough information why this problem appears, and or they do not really understand how your customer or end users interact with your product. In this case, what I can try to work with your customer success team, try to educate, provide all the required resources such as education materials, guidance, involve them into demo presentations. You can also attend interviews or calls with customers, especially support calls when the customer success team is investigating some problems. And of course, help them to integrate your products, provide best practices, how you can do it, and check what, let's say, gaps and problems they heard from the customers. And also try to make them quite collaborative, so they understand that what they are doing is worth doing, and that everything what they deliver will help you to grow the product. And the last category is product usage issues. And here we can have a problem with a lot of usage of features. We may have high churn rates in the first days of usage, absence of user onboarding, and no product analytics. So the first problem is low usage of features in the product. And in general, this can be either as a problem and not a problem. It just depends on your product. In some situations, this is not a problem when, let's say, your end users or customers interact with your products only to fulfill some specific jobs. These jobs are not regular, they happen from time to time, but they see the value and they use your product. So in this case, you can monitor that, let's say, the revenue, you do not have any revenue drops. There are no problem with the product growth and everything looks quite fine, but it is not growing as you want. So this is not a problem, let's say, but there is a room for improvement. But there may be a situation when you see the low usage of features, which results in no purchases of the product or low purchases, and you see the tendency that people stop using, you may see some churned users and something like that. In this case, you need to, again, to conduct user research. You need to understand why this or that feature is not used. Maybe this feature is not so obvious. Maybe this feature doesn't work as expected. Maybe there are some issues with this feature. Usually there can be some floating bugs which you may not or your quality engineers may not find out, but this problem may persist for the end users. So that is why you should try to reach out to these people, especially when you have some sort of analytics tool. You can check in what scenarios you can check the bus at which the feature is not used, or whether the interaction is not performed properly, and you should try to address this problem. And again, if, for example, you see that the feature is not fully used, you should also remember about the Pareto law that 20% of our efforts result in 80% of results. And at some point, you may even decide to deprecate these features, and because they do not deliver any value, they are not needed. And of course, you should also focus on these core features, which are highly used by your customers, and try to enhance them, try to make them more intuitive, and try to polish the user experience as much as possible. High churn rates in the first days of usage. So what may happen here, again, quite similar to the previous point, but here the main problem can be with some sort of issues and bugs that may persist. You may not even notice them. There can be some, let's say, device-specific issues or environment-specific issues, and that is why for you it's necessary to provide some sort of the feedback to you, some feedback form to your users, so they can share this information. Especially if you see these churns within your pipeline, you can also try to reach out to these people, to these end users, and figure out why this happens, what's the current problem. And based on this, you can try to address them as well, if it's possible. And again, the other problem which may also be hidden here is the user on board. When you launch a product, you think that it's quite simple, it has intuitive interface, but in real life you have quite biased let's say understanding of your product, because you spend a lot of time, you understand it, how its all functions work together, but for your customers it's not so obvious. It's why you as a product manager, part of product teams, should develop some sort of onboarding which will help your customers to get started, to get the basics of the product, and then you can provide additional information how to further master additional features within your product. And of course, don't forget to monitor these drop-offs and respond to them proactively. And if you have some product analytics, you can also use some sort of machine learning to predict these drop-offs and try to, let's say, engage the customers to continue using your product with some push notifications or just emails at least. Absence of user onboarding, again, as I already mentioned, it can be a problem. And when someone tells that your product is pretty simple and people can get started without it, it's not so. Just try to recruit some person who is not familiar with the product and see what problems they experience during their onboarding. Include this into the onboarding flow and roll out into production. What is more important, if you deal with B2C products, you can implement different onboarding flows. You can use A/B testing to check which onboarding flow delivers more value, which provides better explanation of features. And based on this information, you can roll out the appropriate onboarding flow. And again, don't forget about user documentation, different sorts of tutorials, use cases, and different sorts of support resources, especially to highly occurring issues if you're aware of some of them. And don't forget to continue real-time monitoring of onboarding and see how you can optimize it over time, especially when your product grows and becomes more mature and complex. And the next problem is no product analytics. Unfortunately, when you launch a new product, you do not always have time and resources to integrate some product analytics platform within your product. And this can be also a problem for you. Let's say after the launch of the problem, it's not so critical, but after a couple of months after the product launch, it's better to cover some at least basic actions within your product and start monitoring these events. You can also monitor different sort of interactions. You can build different types of funnels or user flows and see what happens at the parts of the users. This information will also be quite valuable when you will try to understand which feature to optimize, where you want to change some user experience, and how it will affect the end users. That's why if someone tells that product analytics is not needed, that's a bullshit, let's say so. And without analytics, you will experience great problems over time when you try to integrate some features, and you will see that these features may not be used at all over time. And the product analytics will help you to understand this. And also product analytics can also spot some problems in your user flows when you see some, let's say, incorrect behavior, or users try to find some workarounds, so you can trace it on the user path. And again, a core product without proper execution has a 90% chance of failure. As you know, that 9 of 10 products fail over time. That's why it's very vital for a product team to keep an eye on different signs of problems and address them in advance before they, let's say, become critical and before they ruin your product. So thank you for your time. It's time to answer your questions. While I will be reading through the list of your questions, please leave your feedback by using this QR code. One moment. So from the questions, just feel free to ask your questions. So regarding the recording and the presentation, yes, I assume you can share it. The presentation itself, the recording will be shared on YouTube, and the presentation we can share as a link. Do you have any other questions? Okay, don't be shy. If you have any questions about the product management or other problems that you encounter, just feel free to share them with us. So what kind of prioritization techniques would you personally recommend? In general, I think that RISE is quite a comprehensive prioritization technique, You can also try to use BRICE. Beside it, B stands for business value, so it gives more. It gives just an additional level of prioritization. And again, if you, let's say, see that some of the current prioritization techniques doesn't fully address your problems, you can try to develop your own framework. So it's not a problem. And especially when you perform some user research, you can also use a kind of model which can give you information of what features are core features, which features nice to have, and what features you can even deprecate. Different perception between users and customers. How does my yourself? So different perception of problem between users and customers may happen in B2B products. What it means? You have end users who like your product. They use different features. But let's say your product is pretty simple, but it helps the end users to accomplish their tasks. But customers, people who are paying for the product, they may not have this understanding and may consider that your product is quite simple. It is not worth its money, and in this case, they will have the discrepancy. This is quite common for B2B. In B2C, again, you may have different user groups. Again, any let's say mobile application, it may have free users who do not pay because they do not consider this application as something, let's say, relevant to their life. They just use it occasionally, and you may have some customers who see value in your product. And in this case, it just depends how you position your product to each, let's say, segment of whether it's end users or customers. So you need to perform some, again, customer research just to better understand what kind of objections they have, how you can help them to address the things, and again, don't be shy and communicate with your users, with your customers. They can give you a lot of insights, especially if you can hear problems that they articulate. And these problems may not be always articulated, but sometimes you need to read those lines. Any other questions? If we talk about product management in general, it doesn't matter what product, which framework we use, whether it's Scrum or Kanban. It just depends more on the product. Again, in B2B, if you deal with some security and compliance, it's better to use Scrum with 2 or 4 week sprints. If you develop, let's say, some simple product, it's better to use Kanban. For product development, in general, I prefer Kanban because it allows you to continuously deliver your product to the market. You don't have to wait for a couple of weeks before it can be released. You can be more reactive to some issues that occur. That's why Kanban, from my point of view, is better for product development. For project development, it's better to use Scrum with sprints. Cool. That's this answers. Any other questions? Okay, I see that no more questions. So thank you everyone for joining this workshop. I hope that I shared some useful information with you. If not, you have the form to submit your feedback. Just feel free to do it, so we can also correct our next workshops and provide you with more valuable insights and information. What book can you advise to enhance BA competency? Uh, so again, if we talk about business analyst competency, it's rigors, which you usually read and uh, understand and know. But again, when you work as a business analyst, it's better to educate yourself based on other information. You can watch different YouTube channels, especially what regarding technical information, something like about system design. So you can better understand how, let's say, the system behaves, how it interacts, how components work together. And if we talk about BA, like a person uh, who elicits requirements and analyze the current pain points, it will be good to read books about some customer development and jobs to be done. You can search on such books on the internet. So, uh, for example, Ask Your Mom or Jobs to be Done from Christensen. So regarding the BA, it's, I assume, bigger, so it's classics for everyone. But again, you should try to educate and read other books. And in general, sometimes it's more available to watch some webinar or to read some article from Go Practice or Product Sense, where they share a lot of information from real life. Okay, I hope that that's all. Thanks for your time and see you during the next webinar when we will be talking about different techniques how to collect feedback from your end users. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.